Valve developers may know how to make games, but they don't seem to understand history. This revelation came to me when I was sitting there asking myself, just how ancient is DE ancient? It's a question that I often find myself asking, but it turns out that the answer isn't as simple as you might think. If it were, this video would probably be a lot shorter. Ancient can only be described as what would happen if DE Aztec and DE Dust 2 had a baby. Clearly, Valve loved the idea of Aztec making a comeback into Counter-Strike when they released this map as part of Operation Broken Fang back in December 2020. But remaking a map that is considered to be one of, if not the most unbalanced map of all time, is probably the worst idea that you can think of for modern competitive Counter-Strike. So, they were forced to come up with something a little different. The result was DE Ancient. Many people praise the map for bringing back the old-school Aztec ruins vibe, as it immediately stood out from all other maps in the map pool, but at the same time, due to the limitations of the way that the source engine lights things, it was extremely dark in some areas of the map, which caused many people to complain about visibility. Over time, it seems that the custodians of the region did some work as they made a few changes, like removing these boxes here, or carving an entire tunnel out of this rock wall formation to have tourists be blown away by their ability to lie about the true history of things. Archaeologists everywhere would be so proud. And this is where my main issues with the map seem to stem from. The Aztec civilization existed for around 200 or 300 years, somewhere in the 1300s to 1500s, when they were conquered by the Spanish. That would make this map 500 to 700 years old, which is pretty damn impressive. But if the answer to my question were this simple, this video would be extremely stupid, and luckily for you, Valve made a huge mistake with this map. You see, it appears that Ancient is set at some Aztec ruins in a jungle somewhere, and that is exactly what is the problem. The Aztecs never built nor lived in jungles. Their capital was on a lake bed surrounded by mountains, and happened to be located exactly where Mexico City is today. So does that mean that the entire map is a big fat lie? Of course not. While it is probably extremely racist of Valve employees to make references to Aztec people in the game files, it only takes a couple of brain cells to remember that the Mayans were the ones who lived in the more tropical rainforest parts of Mexico. So when did they live? There is evidence that the Maya people were around as early as 2000 BC and were still around when the Spanish conquered the lands. Luckily, we know that they didn't actually start to build pyramids until around 1000 BC, and their final major piece of construction being Chichen Itza, dated between 900 and 1000 AD. Seeing as there is a pretty basic looking Mayan pyramid here, that means that it's probably somewhere in the 1000 BC to 200 AD range, which would potentially date this area of the map to approximately 2000 years old or more. Surely the nerds who work at Valve know enough about ancient Egypt to ensure that there's nothing obviously wrong about Anubis. You know, aside from the obvious issue on this sign with the word universe starting on one line and finishing on the next. As you can see here, this map is set along the Nile River in Egypt, with the bomb site A being an ancient bathhouse and bomb site B being Obelisk Square. The sign seems to mention that the temple housing the obelisk is from around 3000 BC and that the temple itself is dedicated to the sun god Ra. This is backed up by the fact that the top of the obelisk has a gold tip. However, the ancient Egyptians in the First Dynasty did not start building obelisks like this until much later, like at least 500 years later during the 5th Dynasty, and the first of the surviving obelisks are from around the 12th Dynasty, which is around 1950 BC. As for the bathhouse, these didn't even exist in Egypt until after Alexander the Great and the Greeks took control of Egypt in 332 BC. But the biggest weird thing to me about the map is that all these signs on the map have their text written in the font that you would see on the instruction manual when you buy something cheap from China. Maybe the Chinese took over the Egyptian tourism business recently. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed discovering Valve's historical crimes, hit subscribe, like the video, and most importantly, As always, take care.